Okay, so let's look at the question pertaining specifically to our salaries and wages. So the first thing you have to do is the required. So let's see what we are required to do. So they want you to complete the missing amounts for A to J and the above two tables and round up to the nearest whole rand. So we have to round up. And then once we are done with this, prepare the following ledger accounts. So ledger accounts is your general ledger account or your T account. I'm just going to write here T account. Of Solati for May 2022. Totaling or balancing the accounts is not required, so we do not have to total or balance it. So that means we do not have to close off the account. The payment to SARS and the pension funds are also not required. So we also do not have to do the payment component of it. So the three accounts we have to do is the EMP201 control account. So this is for all your statutory or compulsory payments, deductions / contributions. Okay, so that is your UIF, your STL, your pay as you earn will go to that one. Your pension fund, that is your expense account. And the STL contributions is also the expense account. That is based on the employer contributions. Okay, so let's go look at the first thing, completing the missing information for part A to J. Okay, so let's read through the information first, as there might be pertinent information. So Lati employs 3 employees and run their payroll on the 25th. So we run the payroll on the 25th. Employees are paid via electronic payment. The EMP2 is submitted on the last day of each month. Now, normally the last day would be the 30th or the 31st, depending on the month, together with the EFT for the amount owing. So Lati pays a pension fund fringe benefit equal to 50% of the employee's own contributions. Okay, so this means the employer contributes half. Contribute 50% of the pension fund value as well. So this is additional. So this is their contribution, but it's only worth 50%. So it's not a full one-to-one value. And matches the employee's medical aid. So it's 100%. Just going to say, yeah, 100% of medical aid. Okay. So rand for rand. So Lati pays the amounts owing on behalf of the employee to the pension fund and the medical aid fund on the last day of the month. So the payments occur on the last day of the month. Okay, let's look at what information do they give you. So the first thing, this is similar to your salary journal. This one is your salary journal. So let's see what information is there. We've got 3 employees. They give you the basic salary, the commission, pension fund, fringe benefit. Now, when we talk about the fringe benefit, this is what your employer contributes. Okay, so what they pay on top of your normal salary. Pension fund deduction, this is your voluntary deduction. So what is deducted from your salary based on what you've asked them to do. Okay, so the first one, they're asking you, what is your deduction based on the information above? So if the employer pays 50% of your normal pension fund rate, what do you think part A would be? What would the value be? Okay, so let's quickly just repeat that. If your employer pays 50% of your pension fund value as a fringe benefit, what would your contribution be under A? Mpile says 700 Rand. What does the rest of you think? Do you agree with Mpilo, or do you have a different value that you think should be captured there? Okay, so Mpilo, you're absolutely correct. So we take the 350, which is on the pension fund fringe benefits. We multiply it with 2 to get to 700, or you can multiply it with 100 over 50. You would also get to the same value. So that's how you work out part A. Part B, they give you the pay as you earn and the STR remuneration, but now they're asking you the UIF remuneration. Now how we work out UIF remuneration is we normally take the basic salaries and your pension fund. Let me quickly see in your textbooks where you would find this information. Okay, in the break, I'll quickly look for it where they explain the UIF remuneration, how you calculate it. But it normally excludes commission. Okay, so based on that information, how do you think you would calculate the UIF remuneration? If we take the information here in the front, we would include the basic salary, and the commission, but we exclude the fringe benefits. So we only take their normal salary and normal benefits. We exclude any fringe benefits that they receive from their UIF remuneration. So in this scenario, it's a 10,000 plus the 3,000 gives us 13,000. You will note here that for Jessica and Malope at 17,712. The reason for that is if you take their basic salary and their commission, it will exceed this amount. So it was capped at that value. Okay, so if they ask you, for example, to work out Jessica or Malope's, you would cap it if it is more than the 17,712 Rand. Okay, number C, so pay as you earn is what is also deducted. Medical aid contributions is our voluntary contribution or voluntary deduction. Let's just type here voluntary deduction. And then the medical aid fringe benefit is what your employer contributes. Okay, now based on the information above, your employer matches you Rand for Rand. So if we contributed 500 Rand to our medical aid fund, what would our medical aid fringe benefit be? Okay, so I'm just going to repeat that. If we contribute 500 Rand to our medical aid fund, and we say the employer matched what we contributed on a one-to-one scale, how much did the employer contribute? Okay, so Mpile says 500 Rand. Yes, Mpile, that's correct. If you did not read the information or you weren't sure, if you looked at the rest of the table, they sort of gave it away. So the answer is for one-to-one basis would be $500. Then part D, now they want to know what is your gross salary. Now remember, our gross salary is your basic plus your commission. It's everything before that line item will be added together. So I'm just going to highlight it like this. So based on that, what is our gross salary? So what is D? So what do you think is the value of D? Okay, that's absolutely correct, Umpile. So it's 13,000. So it's the 10,000 plus the 3,000 gives us a gross salary of 13,000. So it's exactly the same calculation as B, which we did for the UIF remuneration, even though it's different amounts. Because we did not include the fringe benefit here, the fringe benefit is included under your employer's contributions. Okay, so then they ask you, what is the UIF that we will have to pay for Johnny Bravo? So remember, UIF is 1% of our UIF remuneration. Based on that information, what would E be? Okay, so Impedes is $130. Okay, so it is the 13,000 we've calculated times 1% will give us the 130 Rand. That's absolutely correct. Okay, what you would see is because of the fact that we kept the UIF remuneration for Jessica Malope, our UIF would also be capped at 177, even though they earned a gross salary higher than that amount. Okay, that's just to note for future reference. So then they want to know what is F? What is our pension fund deduction that we need to capture in the salary journal? What is our pension fund deduction that we have to capture in the salary journal? What do you guys think the amount is? Umpiles is 126,000, 126 Rand. Okay, let me add a comment here and then see if you. Okay, so these deductions represent both our voluntary as well as compulsory deductions from an employee's salary. Okay, so remember pension fund I said is a voluntary deduction. Now based on that information, what did the employee ask that should be deducted from their salary? What amount did the employee ask that they should deduct from their salary for their pension fund? Look at the table just above the salaries journal. The information is there. What information would you capture there under the pension fund? This pension fund deduction column here is what you would capture under your pension fund column there. So based on that, what amount do you think would F represent in this table? 700, that's absolutely correct. So it would be exactly the same as A because of the fact that A represents our pension fund deduction, so our voluntary deduction, and that is then captured in our normal deductions, which includes your voluntary as well as your compulsory deductions by employee. So let's just say this is by the employee into your salary. Okay, now based on that information, which column here at the top information would then be captured into the medical aid one? If we look at this, the medical aid contributions, we would have then transferred it to this medical aid column. So if you see the word contributions, that is the same as a deduction. Okay. Then number D, how do you think we work out the net salary? How do we work out the net salary? Okay, so let's think back. We said net salary is your gross salary less all of your deductions. So our net salary is going to be this gross salary amount less all of these deductions here to get to our net salary. So let's look at the calculation. So your calculation would be the 13,000, which is the gross salary we worked out, less the 1,100, which is the pay as you earn, less the 150, so what we calculated in E, less the 700 that we calculated in F, less the 500, that was your medical aid contribution, would give you a net salary of 10,570 Rand. Okay. Then on H, what is the UIF contribution that the employer needs to pay? Okay, so these employer contributions is what your employer pays on top of your normal salary. So this is in addition of. Okay, so based on that information, what do you think the employer will pay for your UIF on H? So we said when we talked about UIF, both your employee and your employer contributes 1% of the UIF remuneration to SARS. Now, based on that information, what is the amount that we would capture under H? Okay, so Impede says 130 rands, and that is absolutely correct. It is exactly the same amount as E. So whatever we capture under the UIF deductions for the employee, we would also capture for the employer. So I'm just going to do this. so that you guys know those two columns should always be the same. So I'm just going to say okay, so that means number H is 130 Rand. It's the same as E. Okay, then I. We said I is 1% of your STL remuneration. So based on that information, what is the answer? Okay, if STL is calculated as 1% of the STL remuneration, what would the value be under I? 127 Rand. That's absolutely correct, Mpile. So you take the 12,650, you multiply it with 1%. Because they said round it up to the nearest Rand, if you round it up, it will be 127 Rand. Then J is the medical aid. So we said that your employer contributes exactly what you contribute to the medical aid. And your medical aid contribution is your fringe benefit. So I'm just going to write here at the bottom for those two. Okay, so based on that information, what would J be? What would J's value be? 500 Rand. That's absolutely correct, Mpile. So it will be exactly the same as C, or you can go to the medical aid contributions because it was a 1-for-1. It would match that amount over there. Okay, and there we've completed A to J. Now what they also asked is that we complete these general ledger accounts. So how we complete them is we need to total these columns and capture that. So the first column we would have to total is your pay as you earn, your UIF, your STL in order to do the EMP 201 account. So our first entry would be our salary expenses. So that is our normal deductions. It's this column here. And we add those three amounts to get to a value of 3,700 Rand. So it's salary expenses because it goes against the salary expense account, so gross expenses, but this is our creditor account. So we credit the EMP 201 control account, which is a creditor account. Then the next thing we have to do is the UIF that also needs to be paid over. So it's the 130 plus the 177 plus the 177, which also goes to salary expenses, gives us a value of 484 Rand. Then we have to look at the employer contribution, so the UIF and the STL. Now, because of the fact that this is on top of your normal salary, we would take that to the UIF contribution and the ACL contribution, which is the expense account. The employer contributions will have a double entry, whereas these entries up to here would have a single entry because of the fact that the one is debited and the rest are credited. Whereas to bring this into the book, you would have a debit as well as a credit for the UIF, a debit and a credit for the STL. So we would credit the EMP 201 control account and we would debit the UIF contribution account. So yeah, we would say UIF contribution. And we would add all of those amounts together to get to the 484. And then the next one is your STL. We would say debit STL contribution, credit EMP 201 control account. So this would be your STL contribution would be that. Okay, and then they ask you to do your pension fund account. Your pension fund account would come from this line item here and this one there. So this is your pension fund, is your liabilities account, so your creditors account. So we're going to first do the salary expenses for this amount. Which is 3,500. It's a 700 plus the 1,750 plus the 1,050. And then your employer's contribution. So we are going to debit pension fund contribution account. We are going to credit the pension fund liabilities or creditors account, which is what we're busy with. So this would be the pension fund contribution, and it would be half of the value of what the employee contributed. And then they asked you to also do the STL contributions account. So this is a liabilities account. So they need to say pension fund contribution if they want the expense, and this is a expense account. Okay, so the STL contribution, we would match it with this. So this 590 here would be debited in your STL contribution with 590 there. Okay, so that is your contra accounts. Okay, before we take a break, do you guys have any questions on this question, specifically the salary journal or these general ledger accounts that we've completed?